Well, America, we are getting promotion and relegation early, and in a way that I don't think the United Soccer League intended, as a team is being relegated from their league in the USL. We take you to USL League One and Texas, where Texoma, one of the newest clubs in the league this past season, is moving down to USL League Two. They are calling it a self-relegation of sorts, as the USL announced that Texoma will compete in USL League Two for the 2026 season, continuing to grow soccer in Texoma and the surrounding region by joining the premier pre-professional league in the United States. So, now that sounds like marketing speak. That sounds like putting gloss over a less than ideal situation for Texoma. And on the surface of that, you are completely forgiven for thinking that. However, I don't think this is a move that is necessarily bad, not just for Texoma, but I think for American soccer as a whole, as I'm going to be this video is going to kind of build on something that I did a couple days ago with the Truro City AV Alta video. If you want to check that out, it's up in the corner. But I talked a lot about that video about traveling in America and how it takes forever to get anywhere in America. And when you're in these United USL leagues that are not the semi-pro leagues, either Championship or League One, you have to factor in a pretty big travel budget. First things first, though, Texoma. They were not the worst team in USL League One this year. That would have been Westchester, one of the other newer clubs in the league. However, Texoma did have the worst goal differential in the league. They struggled all season, and they kind of got off to a bit of a rocky start in this league in general, only for the matter of the fact that they had not announced any player signings for the longest of times. In fact, I'm going to go back into the old USL Discord here, and I went back to January 10th when Night Guy posted an update on the 5 new USL League One teams and who they had signed up until this point. And these are the teams right here. So by January 10th, Naples had announced 12 signings. AV Alta posted 9. Portland Hearts of Pine had announced 8, and Westchester had announced 7. Texoma had announced none. Now, to be fair, not long after that posting, they started announcing some signings. But I know there was a lot of chatter in this Discord and just in USL circles in general about why Texoma hasn't signed anyone, why they haven't announced anyone yet. And it was kind of being a little bit worrying, I think, for the future of this club, especially since there was just, compared to the other clubs, especially Hearts of Pine and even Naples to a degree, there really wasn't much buzz with Texoma, unfortunately. Now, if we go take a look at the attendance for USL League One, Texoma was not one of the stronger supported clubs, game in and game out. Third lowest in attendance according to USL Tactics. And these are numbers that they compile based on what is announced by the league or by the clubs or both. So, yeah, a little over 1,000 fans at every game at Texoma. Better than Charlotte Independence, to be fair. Better than South Georgia Tormenta, to be fair, but definitely lagging behind. Even Westchester, who finished last in the league, had more fans. It's going to be really interesting to see how Westchester does now that the New York Cosmos are going to be a thing this coming season in League One. We'll get to, League One expansion here in just a little bit here. But it is hard to maintain a club at the USL level, whether it's in a championship or League One, if you're not bringing fans in. Because unlike MLS, USL does not have a big multi-million-dollar TV deal. They do have TV deals, to be fair, with the local TV networks. They also, all their games are on ESPN Plus. Sometimes they get onto, I believe it's CBS Sports Galazzo and those networks. I think the championships actually broadcast on like CBS proper, if I'm not mistaken. I remember watching the 2 championship games last year on national TV. But yeah, Texoma, not the greatest of attendance this year. Now, local TV station KXII in the Texoma area, which, by the way, Texoma is located in the border of Texas and Oklahoma. It's north of Dallas. It's always kind of surprising to me every time I look at a map and see just how close Dallas is to Oklahoma. It's just one of those things where I'm not down that way very often, so I don't really think, about how geographically cities are laid out. But yeah, they're in Sherman, just south of the Oklahoma border. Of course, when I think of Texas border towns, I always think back to those old westerns, and like Laredo, or Corpus Christi, which, by the way, they're getting a League One team here pretty soon, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, they were located on the border between Texas and Oklahoma. So KXII, they talked a little bit more. They went more in depth into why Texoma is moving down. And one of the things that they talked about, of course, they spoke with team president Ben Watson about this. There had been some rumblings in Texoma and around USL circles that Texoma had a kind of a dim future, and like they were talking about maybe moving away from the Texoma area. That did not happen. The club is staying in the Sherman and Denison area. But one of the things that they talked about is when they get into the section here about what to expect next season, they highlight that USL League Two is a shorter season. It runs from May to July, 14-game season, and it's more of a focus on regional opponents. And I think this is something that I think American soccer officials, whether you're in the USL or even one of these smaller semi-pro leagues like the League for Clubs or Midwest Premier League or what have you, have to really, really understand. And that is, this country is so spread out. Travel is a pain in the butt in this country. It just is. Most clubs in League One have to fly wherever it is that they're going. There's very few clubs, unless you're going to be one of the Florida clubs, or if you're in like that Greenville, Chattanooga, Tormenta kind of cluster in the southeast, you have to fly, to most destinations. I mean, you're not driving up to Portland, Maine. Let's just face it. No one is, driving up to Portland, Maine. Westchester probably isn't driving up to Portland, Maine. If they are, that's not a great drive for them either. But USL League Two, Watson talks about how going forward, Texoma will be playing more regional teams in McKinney, Denton, Little Rock, places where our fans can drive and be a part of it. One of the teams that they are going to be playing in this league is the Denton Diablos. Denton Diablos, they just beat Tulsa Athletic in the Open Cup. They are one of the more stronger USL2 teams, just year in and year out. Little Rock's not too far from where they are. It's a regional, drive, but you can drive that, from Denton. That's not an issue. But this is something that he focuses more on the fan experience and how fans can travel to away games, which is that's a valid concern. It's something that I've lamented about as someone that likes to grounds hop, and how hard it is for me to get to games at times. But this also benefits the club as well, and so they don't have to pay as much travel costs, which is a big factor whenever you are running a club at this level. This is the map of USL League One this past year. And in the AV Alta video, I talked about how AV Alta and Spokane, they are the closest teams to each other. That is almost a 1,200-mile drive one way between AV Alta and Spokane. So this is the drive from Antelope Valley, California to Sherman, Texas. It is 1,392 miles one way. You're flying that thing. Let's just face it. You're not driving that. And I made the joke, whenever you go from Spokane to Omaha, you'll need to get an oil change before you drive, and then you'll probably need one when you get back. You'll definitely need to have an oil change done before you drive to Sherman, Texas, and then when you get back, you're probably going to need another one in about another 100, 200 miles or so. That's just the way it is, because when you go west of the Mississippi, it gets so spread out. Omaha They're a club that has, very good financial backing. I think they're going to be announcing some stadium news pretty soon. That's what I've heard through the grapevine, along with a potential move up to USL Championship. And to play in the USL Championship, you have to have money, and Omaha can afford, this kind of grind that they have to go to Spokane, to Alta, to Texoma this past year. For Omaha, Madison was their closest rival, and they still are. But then their next closest would have been Texoma, to be fair, and Omaha, vice versa, would have been Texoma's closest rival, which is, it's a doable drive from, Oklahoma basically up to Nebraska. It's a pretty easy drive too, actually. But regardless, this is the problem that clubs west of the Mississippi face. Again, look at next year Naples. In fact, I'm going to show you what the map looks like for next year. And yes, they've already updated this for you. So ignore Port St. Lucie because they're not starting until 2027. But that is immaterial. All these clubs will be in USL League One next season, with the exception of Port St. Lucie. So you have 20 clubs, and you finally are getting some clubs west of the Mississippi. So you see Boise is going to be popping in, Spokane, Boise, and Cascades. MLS, they have the Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, Cascadia Cup that that rivalry. Now you're going to have a bit of that going on with Cascades, Spokane, and Boise, almost like a mini Cascades Cup of sorts. But it's really good to see that this region's getting filled in here. Also got some neighbors here for Alta that are actually closer than Spokane, so that'll be good for them. Now, if Texoma, again, they were right around here. If they had stayed in the league, they would have had Corpus Christi on the other side of Texas, which would have still been a few hours of a drive because Texas is pretty massive, but at least it would have given them a regional rival. Now Corpus Christi's kind of got the problem where actually they might be closer to Sarasota than AV Alta. In fact, I think they are actually, if they go across the Gulf of Mexico. Yes, I call it Gulf of Mexico. Respect to long-term names, everyone. But then yeah, you got Fort Wayne popping in. That'll help out Madison, Omaha, even Knoxville to a degree. New York Cosmos, that's going to be a local derby with them in Westchester. And then you got all these Florida clubs. All these Florida clubs are just popping up and down. These are all drivable. 100% these are drivable. I was born in Florida. I have family down there. Florida, to get to these places, it's easy. It is a real easy drive, and you're better off driving for basically all of these. But that's where the USL League One is going. Now, Texoma, getting back to them real quick, they are not the first team to kind of self-relegate. A couple years ago, Northern Colorado Hailstorm, as well as Central Valley Fuego in League One, they both exited the USL League One, and they joined the League for Clubs for 2025. And the reasoning for both, it's, attendance, financial. For both clubs, you can do a little bit of A, a little bit of B, but when it boils down to it, long story short, I know Northern Colorado is a really long story. It's just, basically money and finances and attendance, basically. But I want to bring up another club here. When it comes to this club here, did not actually relegate; they just disappeared, and I'm talking about Lansing Ignite. So this is the standings from the very first year of USL League One. In fact, I'm gonna try to frame this a little better here for you. Yeah, Lansing Ignite. You probably had no idea Lansing Ignite was a thing. But in 2019, they were in second place in League Two, right behind North Texas, who's now in the MLS Next Pro system, and just ignore all the MLS clubs in there because they're now in MLS Next Pro in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, Lansing finished right ahead of Greenville, Madison, Chattanooga, South Georgia, all League One mainstays, and they had a good goal differential. Things look pretty good for them. Lansing is a good market for soccer. Michigan in general is a good market for soccer. So what the hell happened to Lansing Ignite? They just kind of disappeared. On October 21st, 2019, it was officially announced by USL League One that despite a successful first season performance-wise, the Ignite would not be returning for 2020. This, of course, was after. Falling in the playoff semifinals to Greenville. And then on October 14th, Marshall Hollingsworth, one of the midfielders, posted on Instagram that the Ignite would be folding and that all players have been released from their contracts. So, and that's the same that happened with Texoma. When they dropped down to League Two, all the players got released from their contracts, and now they're free to sign whenever and wherever, basically. But one of the cool reason I bring up Lansing Ignite is because of something cool that kind of came from their demise, and that is Lansing Common. Lansing Common, they were a really, by all intents and purposes, a Phoenix club for Lansing Ignite. I mean, it's kind of appropriate, Phoenix, Ignite, Fire, get it? A group of fans, Eric Wolcott and Jeff Sykes, decided to make a supporter-owned team. And they are now one of the more successful clubs in the Midwest Premier League, just year in and year out. And they are a fan ownership model. You can own a piece of Lansing Common right now. Like, you can go to their website and you can buy a yearly membership for them, and bam, you're a part owner of Lansing Common. That's just that, and that is how Lansing Common funds their club year in and year out, is the same type of fan ownership model that you see with like AFC Wimbledon. They're probably the most famous example of a fan-owned model. Also, a lot of German clubs have this type of a model. The 50+1 model is, fans own at least 50% plus one of a club in Germany. It's something that I wish, was more worldwide, but we live in a capitalistic society where you have oil barons and billionaires buying up clubs left and right. It's just those days are fading fast. But Lansing Common is an example of a club that Orange County, another club, Oakland Roots, another club where they've had some sort of fan ownership model here. And that leads me to something that I was going to announce in a separate video or talk about in a different video, but I feel this is just as good a time as any. I'm trying to get a fan-owned club off the ground. We're trying to bring that to St. Louis because I think as interest in soccer grows in America, I think there is more interest in fans having a say in their club moving forward. And part of that is because of how MLS is run and operated. It's basically a pyramid scheme where all the clubs buy into one piece of the pie, and each club is like 1/30th of the pie. In theory, some clubs are more noteworthy than others. Inter Miami, but we're not stupid. As soccer fans, collectively, we're not dumb. We follow our teams. We're diehard supporters of our teams. We follow the ins and outs of our teams. We follow the game of soccer as a whole. And so I think as fans feel like, and this is this is also a problem in Europe as well, but here in America, as fans feel like they're more jaded from their clubs, they are looking for other options. And of course, also the economy, we're heading into a recession. They're looking for affordable options to enjoy the game that they like and support their local community. So we're trying to do this fan ownership model. I think there's a market for it in St. Louis. I think there's a market for it, around the country as well. Our club is going to be a 501c3. In fact, we already are, which means as a nonprofit, you get access to a lot of different resources and help, and you can also have that type of a membership model. And it's a really good way to give back to your community, by having this type of a model, volunteering for your local club and helping them get off the ground. I think that is something I would love to see more of. But another reason that we are launching this club is the local aspect of it. And so we would be playing in the Gateway Conference. As you can see, all of these clubs on your screen right here, these are, the farthest drive for any club is going to be this one to Columbia, Missouri, which is about 2 hours away. That's doable. You can drive that. Most players, will find a carpool system and they'll drive there and drive back, or they'll stay overnight and drive back. It's really up to them. Columbia is a kind of a fun weekend getaway city anyway. It's a college town, a lot of good places to eat, fun stuff to do there. But I know next year there's going to be more clubs that are getting added to this, and they're all local. They are all local. And I'm going back to this article where, again, Texoma's president talks about playing more regional teams like McKinney, Denton, Little Rock, places where fans can drive and be a part of it. And he even talks about how you're going to see away team fans traveling to Texoma. They'll start to see Bearcat Stadium have more fans from both teams, which will be a fun experience for both clubs. Yes, away days are absolutely fun. Whether you are, I mean, if you are a diehard supporter of your club, there is a special feeling when you and, a few dozen of your fellow fans invade another place. I mean, thankfully in America, we don't have a lot of the violence issues that you have with such derbies like you see in Europe and around the world. But it's also just kind of a fun way to meet new people, meet new friends that you would otherwise have no reason to connect with if it wasn't for the game of soccer. And so that is a benefit. And so that's why we are looking at the Gateway Conference in the Midwest Premier League, just because you can have all of these local clubs that you really just have to drive across town to support. And I think this is something, and I'm going to leave this video off on this note. I think in order for this game to properly grow, we need more regionalization of this game in this country. I think it is a simple matter of keeping costs down. It is also a matter of building local rivals. Local rivals build interest. Like, I can't imagine, like, again, AV Alta and Spokane, I bring them up again. Was that really a derby? Like, and let me know in the comments, was that an actual derby? I mean, if you are, or if you're one of my, friends with Union Omaha, did you really get excited when Spokane Velocity came to town? Like, was that really like a thing that you looked forward to? Or would it have been more fun if a team from Des Moines came into town? I actually got to experience that when Union Omaha traveled to Des Moines Menace in the Open Cup earlier this year, and it was. I mean, both supporters were hanging out. It was a chance for them to get together. It was a short drive. Let's just face it, local rivalries are the bedrock of English soccer. Whether you're in the Premier League, Liverpool, Everton, Man City, Man United, all the London clubs, or whether you're in the non-leagues as well. I mean, there is something special about playing your local rival. It just is. And so in order for this game to grow, we need to focus more on regionalization and less on trying to break into the big leagues, where you have spread out teams across America and travel costs are just an absolute burden. I know Ozark United. I did a video on them recently. They are having trouble, getting off the ground. They still need another investor, in order for them to actually get going. And so but they're going to have the same problem that Texoma had. They're in the same region essentially, and so outside of FC Tulsa, when they go into championship, and then when Omaha joins, in hopefully 2027, 2028, Ozark United's going to have the same problem where they're going to have to travel, to Timbuktu and back, for some of these games, and that adds up. That really does add up, and it also. It limits your own fans' ability to get invested in the league that they're in, because they can't just go to Orange County on a whim, or they can't just go to the Miami FC on a whim. I mean, it's a decent vacation spot, so maybe you book a vacation around the game. But the fact of the matter is having these big spread out leagues, you don't really develop the rivalries that you would if you had more local systems to develop that interest in. And then, Texoma, for instance, let's just say Texoma goes to USL League 2. They play Denton, they play McKinney, they play Little Rock, and you have all these memories being made from these local rivalries, and Texoma builds itself back up again. And then maybe they join League One, whenever it starts expanding again. Because I'm going to go back to the map coming up here for League One. This map is filling out. It actually is starting to fill out a little bit. I mean, we still need teams kind of, in the four corners area here. But there's going to come a point where you are finally going to be able to split League One into regions. Like USL Championship, they split into a Western Conference and an Eastern Conference, and that is by design. That is, to help reduce travel costs. League One just has not been big enough in order to split that. And the unfortunate thing, and this is from Alex Ashton in the Discord, but he has been hearing that for next season there's not going to be a split, slightly unbalanced schedule again, and this was coming from a team that alluded to potentially struggling to make it into 2026. So yeah, going back to that, I mean, it sounds like it's not going to happen quite yet, that split, but I think for the betterment of the league, I think it is something that just needs to happen eventually. But at the same time as well, if you're going to develop the game, develop it the right way, develop it locally in their communities, have some local rivals. That's something that USL really shoots itself in the foot over, is the fact that you have territory rights, which means that you only have one club for a certain radius, that, and someone owns those territory rights. I think that stunts. I mean, that doesn't stunt growth in terms of, owners looking to invest in soccer, because you can claim a territory, like when Springfield, Missouri, when their team gets going, they can claim that region, but they won't have a local rival either, because I think they're going to start in League One, and that means Ozark and Tulsa and Omaha, they're going to be up in the championship. Tough luck. So where, and they won't have Texoma nearby. So what then? But yeah, I want to see more. And I think as this game grows, I think there is more interest being paid attention to these, fourth tier leagues. Like, I'm someone that is also just discovering the non-leagues, the fourth tier of America, and I don't think I'm alone in that, which is one reason why I want to focus more, on, the non-MLS leagues on this channel going forward. I'll have a video coming out pretty soon about where I'm going to take this channel going forward. This video, the one I did the other day on Truro City and AV Alta, and then the one I did on Ozark United, that's kind of a hint. That's kind of an idea of where I want to take this. And this video is also kind of an experiment just to see how you enjoyed this kind of more of a commentary, style of a video. And this is your soccer zombie, Tom Franklin here. And if you enjoy more non-league content like this, here's some videos from Omaha. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that this time. This is almost becoming like an Omaha soccer channel with how much I cover Omaha lately, it feels like. But no, here's two other videos from my lower league exploits that you can check out right up here. In fact, this one up here, that right up here, I'm going to let YouTube pick the video on, and we'll see if it picks up a non-league video or one that that you might be more interested in. But this one for sure will be a non-league video. Enjoy.